Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pash On Podcast. Let's get started with your host, Brian Pash.
Hi, this is Brian Pash, and welcome to another podcast. On today's show, I have Ford Kirk. He's the strategy partner and account manager at CarWars. Ford, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Brian. I'm excited to discuss going forward what we're going to be talking about at the upcoming conference.
Yes, it's great to have CarWars again as a sponsor. You've been a great advocate for dealer education. Cassie and others over the years have done some amazing keynotes and workshops and panels, and the upcoming Automotive Analytics and Attribution Summit will be no different. And it's a perfect time to get an update from CarWars, because when we talk about attribution today, more and more of those conversions are happening in message format or phone call format. Lead form volumes in general are less utilized in mobile experiences, and phone calls and messaging more. So let's start at a high level for a minute, Ford. 2 years ago, CarWars acquired Vistadash, and Vistadash is a leader in providing transparent reporting for dealers and their marketing investments to know where their calls are coming from, how much those conversions are costing, and try to identify marketing waste. There's a new announcement that I'm excited for that has to do with now the work that the two companies have done at a high level. What are you guys going to be talking about at the conference about the integration of those two platforms?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're excited to announce that CarWars and Vistadash now have an integration within the CarWars platform. So we're going to be taking that rich campaign data, that rich conversion data, and that third-party and vendor data that you can receive in Vistadash and dropping it into the CarWars platform and marrying that with the CarWars call data that we're already tracking, reviewing, and recording today to give you that complete picture of kind of your online metrics that are most important to you, while also giving you those really powerful offline metrics of those phone calls, because we know at the end of the day, those are converting at a much higher rate, and phone calls are much lower in the funnel than you might see a form lead or a chat or other conversions that take place online.
I couldn't agree with you more, Ford. And think about it. Vistadash for years was telling dealers a very clear picture of how their marketing campaigns generated lead forms, phone calls, chats, and texts. Now, through the CarWars platform, they're going to be able to listen to those calls, correct?
Absolutely, yes. They'll be able to listen to them, and they'll also be able to get that rich CarWars data. I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar if you've been to the summit before or been to DMSC, of that CRISP acronym that we always like to reference. So they'll actually be able to see those CRISP metrics if the call was connected, if the customer was requested and invited in, if an appointment was booked, and then the outbound metrics as well on those calls that come in on the CarWars platform.
Well, one of the other things that Vistadash was missing was the call recording and call scoring. And let me explain why for dealers who are looking for greater insights into how their marketing is working. There are often times where dealers are spending $1,000 or $2,000 and there's not a lot of conversions, meaning there wasn't a lot of lead forms, maybe not a lot of texting, but there were some phone calls. And in the past, within Vistadash, we'd be able to say, wow, your cost per conversion was really high. You should look into that. But now the dealer can listen to the phone calls to see, well, was I at least getting the right or qualified, consumer to call? Same thing with branding campaigns. We've been telling dealers for years, when you buy your own name, the majority of the calls are for service or admin and not new sales opportunities. And again, dealers will be able to go into CarWars, look at their calls by campaign or campaign tags, and for once and for all, really do their own testing very quickly. Okay, when I buy my own name, what happens? Well, look, man, look at all these phone calls. Let me listen to those calls. Wouldn't you agree, Ford, that this partnership really represents that next step of dealers being able to feel better about the campaign strategies that they're implementing and also to eliminate strategies that aren't working?
Completely agree, Brian. And what I like to reference is that there's a lot of places where you might be able to see some of your paid campaigns, or you have these performance dashboards that you can log into, but you're going in multiple places for one. And two, there's not a way to kind of streamline that view. You can't see your paid and organic in one view unless you have a specific view built out for that. But we're simplifying that for you. We want to take that burden off the marketing team to say, okay, how am I going to pull all this together and actually deliver that data for you so you can make those smart marketing decisions and know exactly which ones of your phone leads are driven by which campaign.
That's the basics, right? That any advertiser should be able to get. Unfortunately, many dealers get very vague reports, and I just saw a report from an ad agency that's in an OEM program, and the dealer was spending thousands of dollars, and it listed all the campaigns and showed the clicks and the time on site and the VDP views, but there wasn't a single conversion shown on the report. There was no phone calls, there was no lead forms, there was no chats and texts. And sometimes dealers don't have a choice in OEM programs. The nice thing about Vistadash and CarWars now, even for the agency partners that are not very transparent or their reporting is very weak, the Vistadash CarWars combination really will shed light into those dark areas to be able to inspect performance. And I think that's another whole reason to get a demo, Ford, of the latest platform and reporting.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree completely. And another thing to pile on is that you're going to need to know what your campaigns are providing right now. You know, in 2021, we're about to be making decisions on which campaigns we're going to be keeping and which ones we're going to be moving on from. And if we don't have that baseline in place, how are you going to know which ones or what the impact of those changes are? So at least getting that baseline in place of saying, here are the current campaigns, so that you, once you do make those adjustments, once you do change, whether it's your paid spend or make an adjustment to campaigns you're running, you're going to be able to see the present and the future, or the past and the present of those changes as well in this reporting to give you even deeper insights there.
Well, Ford, let's turn to something a little bit more technical, but extremely important. Dealers who have call tracking numbers or dynamic numbers on their website will often get text messages on those same numbers. So when a dealer subscribes to CarWars to get the call scoring, the call recording, and the connection of the phone calls to campaigns, what happens if a consumer texts that number? Are those numbers enabled for both calls and text messages?
Yes, we do have the ability to text enable all of our dynamic numbers as well. And just like on a phone call where you'll get that campaign attribution for that call, you would get the same via text. So we would be able to append that data, whether it's the UTM tag or whatever campaign that clicked through. If it's an organic GMB listing, we report on that and give you that data in the CarWars reporting, and also be able to pass that into Google Analytics. So it's seamless on that side of being able to see not just your phone call conversions, but also your text messages as well that come in.
Now, one of the other technical challenges with the ability of tracking phone calls to campaigns is how dynamic number insertion, or DNI, works. And for dealers who are not familiar, let me just give you an example. If you have a static or fixed number on your website, whether somebody comes from Google or Facebook or Google My Business, the phone number stays the same. And when someone calls that number, you have no idea what prompted or what channel online they came from. With the dynamic number insertion that CarWars provides, if somebody comes from Facebook, it's a number. If somebody comes from Google, a number. If somebody comes from Google later, it's a different number, meaning the session is matched up with a phone number. So if somebody clicks on Google My Business, comes to the website, Google Analytics knows where they came from. CarWars knows which number they called and connects those two session actions into a log. But one of the frustrations that dealers have had in the past is somebody makes a change to their website, somebody makes an accidental edit, and the DNI code gets removed from the website. Obviously, this is not a new problem, Ford. So what has CarWars done to help dealers minimize the data loss? Because maybe someone on their website company, maybe someone on their agency, somebody went into the website builder and screwed something up.
Yeah, absolutely. We see that quite a bit where they might even change website providers and forget to let us know, hey, we're changing providers and the script's no longer on the site from the new website. So what we've really found is successful is taking that burden off your team and providing our tag manager, Google Tag Manager, to be placed on the website. That includes our call tracking script, and we'll have alerts set up internally to be notified if that tag manager falls off the website. So we'll be immediately able to proactively notify you if for whatever reason our script's no longer on the site, to prevent that extended downtime where you're not picking up that dynamic traffic.
Well, that's surely a relief, because one of the worst things to have happen is the DNI gets dropped off. Now, of course, the original phone number is going to be there. So, I mean, they're not missing phone calls. They're just missing the conversion data by campaign. And of course, that's the magic of really knowing if your marketing is working. And this is so important as dealers try new advertising channels. And what do I mean by that? So with platforms like Snapchat, trying to reach a younger audience, with OTT video and clickable digital video, there are new ways in which to reach consumers. Amazon is becoming now the third largest advertising platform in the world, and dealers are starting to advertise there. Dealers need to know that their number one conversion channel, the phone, has to be inspected to make sure that the audience that they're targeting, the promises of the platform, are being realized, in that their ad dollars are generating real sales opportunities. And then the second piece is, which is core to the CarWars philosophy and Chris, is how you're handling the calls. Where they're coming from, super important. Is it the right audience? Super important. Is the juice worth the squeeze? Yes or no? All right. Once that is set, how are we handling the calls? Ford, why do you think in 2020 we're still talking about a vast majority of dealers not having any phone processes, no phone training, and that they're losing millions of dollars of business? Why are we still having that conversation?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it could be a lot of things, but one of the aspects that we've seen in the past quarter is when we made this V recovery. We had a couple good months in the automotive industry where customers were buying vehicles and we had great gross margins, and that made us feel very comfortable almost. And we might have forgotten the processes that were in place or the training that was in place prior to where customers were pretty much coming from all over to purchase a vehicle, but to now need to actually get back to the basics and to be able to handle those phone calls in a crisp way, as we like to say, or making sure that they're being crisp on the phone. And that's just come back to the basics is what we keep referring to, and where they continue to push for those appointments on that initial inbound phone call, book at a specific date and time for those appointments, and then also confirming those with the outbound phone process. So that is really important for us, and making sure that we continue to push dealers to be crisp on the phone, and reminding them, although the times might be good right now, that crisp mantra and that crisp mindset is really going to help you and help carry you through some times where you might be getting a less number of phone leads, and every single phone lead is that much more important. The more crisp you are, the more you can maximize those leads and lead to more appointments and lead to more customers walking through in those doors.
And one of the other things that dealers who may not have looked at the platform recently, and of course the partnership with Vistadash, the integration now of the Vistadash data in CarWars is worth an updated demo, just that alone. But CarWars has done a lot of work in deep integration with the CRM, so all of those outbound phone tasks are now clickable, recordable, and scoreable. So we're not just talking about inbound calls, right? Ford, we're also talking about the dealer's ability to make sure that call actions that are scheduled as part of the follow-up are done, right? That's the CRM's job. And then they're done well, which is CarWars' job. And so we can't miss that aspect of the integration as well. True?
Yes, you hit the nail on the head. The outbound side is just as important as the inbound, because inevitably things are going to come up for a customer where they might miss an appointment or no-show you. But making sure that follow-up takes place, and that's not just for salespeople. It should be also managers who are configured in the CRM to be able to make these outbound calls, because a manager should be calling to confirm appointments. They should be calling back those no-shows as well, and also being on the outbound calling side as well. So the more managers and sales team alike are using that outbound integration, like Brian, like you mentioned with our CRM partners, the more those customers are going to be reached, and the more likely it is that they're actually going to show up in your dealership.
So let's talk a little bit about the upcoming Automotive Analytics and Attribution Summit. There's no attribution without measuring phone calls and text messaging conversions. We know that. That's basic. You guys are doing a workshop, and one of the highlights always is randomly inspecting dealers' phone calls. What can dealers look forward to in your workshop presentation this year?
Yeah, absolutely. So we will be playing a couple call examples that we have that we're excited to share with you guys. And then we'll also be giving you guys an in-depth look at what that Vistadash and CarWars integration is going to look like in reporting. So you guys know exactly what that'll look like. And then in addition to that, we want to give you a brief breakdown or review of how your team can be handling those calls, or how you should be handling those calls as well. And then at the end, we'll give you guys an opportunity where we'll have a URL link where you can sign up your dealership if you want us to mystery shop that dealer or your dealership, and give you feedback on that call as well. So we'll have that opportunity, whether you're a CarWars client or not, to give you guys some feedback as if we were a customer calling to see real life, whether you have a call tracking provider or not, how your team is handling sales calls, or how your team's handling those inbound phone calls that come in on a day-to-day basis.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. And I know I also invited Dan Moore, president of Vistadash, to join me on another panel on conversion measurement. So we're going to have the CarWars team, we'll have Dan from Vistadash, and of course this joint integration is so exciting to see because of the combined value the two companies deliver to dealers, and it is really the truth serum that dealers can apply to any of their marketing investments to really get to the bottom of what's working to help them sell more cars. If you are listening to today's podcast and have not registered for the Automotive Analytics Summit, you should know that it's a 3-day event. It's live streamed on November 16th, 17th, and 18th. And we have over 50 workshops, keynotes, and panel discussions that will all be provided. And the great news is that since we can't expect you to clear 3 days from your calendar, that would be silly, all of the content will be up for 60 days. Now, I said 60 days because we announced that normally we keep the content up for 30 days, but that kind of puts us into the December window, which is the busiest time of the year. So we're going to put up the content and let it stay up to the end of January. This gives every dealer with a pass the ability to go back in as many times as they want, create a little conference room meeting, replay like the CarWars workshop, or listen to a keynote, or to strategize with your agency based on the great speakers, workshops, and thought leadership. So it's an amazing value. I call it a masterclass of automotive retail. So don't forget to buy your tickets at automotiveattributionsummit.com. And if this is the first time you're hearing a podcast, this is a special broadcast with all of the speakers and leaders that are going to be featured at the AAA Summit in November. So every 3 or 4 days, we're going to be releasing a new podcast in an accelerated format. Otherwise, we have dozens of great podcast sessions that are available on the iTunes podcast channel, Google Play, SoundCloud, Spotify, or the native podcast platform, Libsyn. That's Libsyn. And my channel is very simply brianpash.libsyn.com. Ford, I want to thank you for being a part of this podcast. I want to thank CarWars for their continued support in dealer education and doing all of the great work you do to help dealers sell more cars in a digital age. And we look forward to spending more time with you in a future podcast session. So stay tuned for another great speaker in the coming days.